Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are and when you're listening and viewing this. My name is Reverend Jerry Yakov, and I'm your host. This show is called Spiritual Awakening 101, and that's exactly what we're intending to cover: how to spiritually awaken, how to tap into and tune into, and then evolve into the spiritual beings that we were created as love, as power, as health, as wealth, as wisdom. This is our true nature, and we want to function in the world as our true selves. Well, today I'm going to be reading from the Science of Mind magazine, Guide for Spiritual Living. This is the August 2020 edition, and today's date is August 13th. The entry for today is entitled Grateful, So Grateful. And this is an entree, if you will, to a vibration that we want to practice. If you're at the level of vibratory energy, you will attract a similar vibration from the universe. So if your vibration is low and depressing or anxious or fearful or doubting or in some way confused, then of course you will get pictures from the universe consistent with your internal condition or vibration. If, on the other hand, you can um, di- uh, distill from within you that lovely experience of gratitude, so grateful, so thankful, so filled with an acknowledgement of the blessings and the grace that we receive each and every moment in our lives, that then attracts from the universe a similar attraction at an energetic level, and it would be consistent with gratitude. Well, what are we grateful for? We're grateful for wonderful things. We're grateful for things that thrill us in terms of a picture of our worthiness and our self worth and our self esteem. And it's also attracting consistent with that which we want to give to others because we love others as much as we love ourselves. And we're attracting that which we would like to extend and to give as well as to receive. So grateful, so grateful. And here's a quote from Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Science of Mind. He quotes, "I do not think we should make such a claim to divinity that we forget we are human." Well, being in the earth suit, as I like to call it, and recognize our humanity is in no way a denial of our spiritual nature. The two are one and the same when we're at the highest vibrational level and thinking consistent with and being consistent with and acting consistent with and doing consistent with the nature of our true self. That is our true self as spirit. That is our true self as an expression of spirit vis-a-vis the earth suit as humanity. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. There is a background, if you will, of supply, of a generative force. And that then gets exuded through our minds, through thought, and then translated into speech and action. Whatever I think, I then attract to me. Whatever I know with certainty is spiritual, I attract from the trust that I have in the process of the universe. It's a friendly universe when I'm thinking friendly, happy, learning thoughts. It's an unfriendly universe, in my estimation, when I'm thinking negatively. So I want to think positive thinking, loving thoughts, appreciative thoughts of thanksgiving and gratitude. This is a very, very high level of consciousness. And the level of consciousness that we're learning to develop then attracts what we're so apt to be grateful for. Well, let's read on. It says, I believe the greatest power of our spiritual beliefs is the power they have to help us navigate through the human experience. Well, what else would we seek really but a guidance system? The guidance system of this highest power, which is good and very good, and omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent, is there for us to guide us, to strengthen us, to provide us with a sense of love, loving, and lovability. And when we know this, we then share that love, loving, and lovability with everyone that we meet. And then your average encounter, every meeting becomes a holy encounter. Why? Because we're acknowledging the divinity in me recognizes and supports and empowers the divinity in you. And there again, I'm grateful to know this. I'm grateful to stand firm in my decision to align with God's love, God's beauty, God's guidance, God's will is my will. They're one and the same. I have no will separate from God because God created me in its likeness and image. God's will is love. I'm being created as love, and therefore God's will is my will. And I'm grateful. This puts it at a very high vibrational level. And what I attract, which is a law of good, a law of cause and effect, what I attract is consistent with that which I most desire. And that's health, wealth, wisdom, prosperity, love, relationships, some materiality, of course, that suits me and is consistent with my idea of prosperity and abundance, so that I can share with others, so that I don't have to worry about money. I don't have to worry about taking care of myself or taking care of others that I'm responsible with and for. I have the ability to do that, and I have the ability to play. I have the ability to recreate as well. I have the ability to express myself, mainly express myself in a joining with others. It is so beautiful and it's so fulfilling to be able to express as a spiritual being in an earth suit with another spiritual being in an earth suit. Let's go on here. It's written, I have found times when I wanted to avoid dealing with the depth of my grief or the discomfort of my anger by simply claiming my divinity. But the reality is this: I am a human being. I am born of divinity. The spiritual DNA within me is wholly present. Spiritual laws are always working in, as, and through me. Spiritual principles are absolute, and I am human. One of those spiritual principles is that whatever form life takes, within there is an intelligence, and that's capital I intelligence, that is true to that form. Every form of life has a blueprint for expression. Every form of life is unfolding and evolving through time and space in accordance with its nature. Well, let's take a look at that for a moment. There is a blueprint. There is an infinite intelligence. When that blueprint is mapped out by infinite intelligence, it's a perfect blueprint. When we think with our minds, consistent with the blueprint that infinite intelligence created, and then align with the flow of that blueprint by thinking consistent with the blueprint, we then function in the most loving, fulfilling, powerful, beautiful, and loving again, loving, 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 thankful, grateful way of expressing ourselves. That's a law. That is a scientific law that as a man thinketh, so is it done unto him. And Jesus, the master teacher, always said, it is done unto you as you believe. Take up your bed and walk. You're no longer ill. Your thoughts are of health. You're no longer in poverty. Your thoughts are of abundance and prosperity. You're no longer alone and sad. You have the process of thinking consistent with the joining one in the whole as the whole. There's no separation between you and everyone and everything else. There is a hologram of unity, a circle of atonement that we're all within. You don't have to redraw the circle. It's already in the blueprint. It's already given to us. What we have to do is wake up and be grateful. Thank you, God. I'm part of your design. You've designed me and you've declared it good and very good. And I am part of the blueprint, and I have the free will that you've given me in my mind and my thinking to then follow the flow of the blueprint and to build it one day at a time, one moment at a time, one thought at a time. All of this is within the nature and the structure of how we've been built. And now we want to design our function consistent with that. Well, it says I am supposed to have human experiences because I'm human. The oak tree in my neighbor's yard that had to be cut down because it had a fungus was still a perfect oak tree. The raccoon that ventured into my patio was having the experience of being lost. That didn't make it less divine or perfect. Where do we get the false idea that being spiritual beings means avoiding the experiences that are an integral part of human life? So every mistake is an opportunity to learn. And if I've made a mistake, which is inconsistent thoughts, speech, and behavior, inconsistent with the blueprint of God's omniscience and omnipresence, I then have an opportunity to create again, co-create again, to choose again. I can go back and start my day over again in alignment with the blueprint. And the blueprint is undergirded by gratitude. It's undergirded by faith. It's undergirded by a willingness. This is so important. The willingness the size of a mustard seed. It doesn't take much. I can be willing to be willing. And that gets me back into the flow of the blueprint. And the blueprint, of course, is divinely inspired. The blueprint is given to me as grace. The blueprint is the master plan for each of our lives. Now, there's a coincidence of blueprints. My blueprint coincidences with your blueprint in such a way that we empower each other. I support your blueprint. I support the similarities in your blueprint with my blueprint. And where they vary, I support you marching to the drum that you are drumming, that you are marching to. And I support you in going down the road of the least traveled road. I love M. Scott Peck's book and the whole idea of the road less traveled. That is the one where each of us takes the steps that are necessary to retrace back to the experience of the divinity that's the blueprint within us. We experience that divinity. We experience the blueprint and the purposefulness of our lives. Every one of us takes the road less traveled. Why? Because my road back is the one that I had somehow come from and away from heaven. Now I'm going back. I've turned around in my mind. I've decided that I'm going back to where there are countless diamonds in my own backyard. Are you familiar, some of you, with that story of the diamonds in the backyard? This is the story of a young man who goes out to make his fortune. And the metaphor is that he's left heaven. And he goes out to where all the symbols of heaven reside. But the symbols are unfulfilling. Heaven was really right there in his own heart, his own mind, his own backyard. That's where the diamonds were. And so we turn around, having recognized that the false ideals, the false self, the ego, the edging God out, is no longer what we're interested in. And we then take our road less traveled back to our own backyard, the heart and the mind and the soul, where all the diamonds were given to us. And the father, as in the prodigal son story, says, "Welcome home. I've been waiting for you. I'm throwing a party in celebration." And life is a celebration from then on out. Why? Because that's the blueprint. We don't have to go back to the drawing board and make our own blueprints. That would be really contrary to the way that the law of the universe is designed. The law of the universe says that the blueprint is already in existence for each of us. That came as we were created. We then, in some respect, forgot to follow the blueprint and went off in a misdirection with false blueprints. But we have the ability, when the false blueprints repeatedly fail to serve us, to let them go. They no longer serve us. They may have at one time, I don't know. You may have felt that they served you in some respects, but in comparison to the blueprint that is given to each of us, it pales by comparison. So here we are, retracing that road less traveled back to the diamonds in our own backyard, which is our own heart and our own mind. Not the body per se. The body is the vehicle. The body is the communication link. The body is the learning tool. And it's very helpful because we are invested as humans in a three-dimensional world. But what is the context in which all of the bodily importance occurs? It occurs in a context of love, of grace, of gratitude, of knowledge, of wisdom, of connectedness, of oneness, of I amness. Well, it says, I'm so grateful to live fully in this human life. I want to experience every emotion and have as many adventures as I can. I want to meet and get to know all the ways Spirit expresses in me and in all humanity. That's a lovely sentiment. I want to live a life that's full of gratitude. I want to experience every emotion, particularly those at the top of the ladder, the ones of gratitude, joy, bliss, enthusiasm, enlightenment, happiness. God wills and Spirit wills that we be happy. That is built into the blueprint. Happiness, joy, bliss. All I have to do is follow the blueprint. And that's through prayer and through meditation. We sit calmly and silently and we listen because there is a voice that speaks to us all through the day, constantly urging us gently and lovingly. Come back to this portion of the blueprint. This is your next right step. Listen to the voice that's within you. If it brings up your feelings and emotions and you're happier and you're more grateful, then you know that it's the voice of Spirit. If it's less than that, if it's somehow depressing, if it's somehow fearful, you know that you're listening to the voice for the wrong blueprint, and that would be the ego. So let's go back then and recognize, and here's an affirmation, the spiritual me is here to experience the fullness of my humanity, the fullness of my spiritually driven, contextual humanity on a content level. There's so much content for me to enjoy while I'm in the midst of the blueprint and the building that is going on. What's beyond the blueprint and the building is not a concern or something understandable right now. It will unfold and more will be revealed. And as we recognize that, we then shift blueprints, but they're given to us. It's another gift of grace. Blueprints are not static. They are not etched in concrete. Blueprints are very much in process, and the blueprints are updated, and the blueprints are revised consistent with my consciousness being updated and revised through gratitude. The more gratitude, the more the blueprints shift for my good and for the good of the world and everybody I meet. Because one blueprint, repeated over and over again, is a violation of the law of expression, of karma. We want to have good karma. We want to have unfolding karma. We want to have unfolding good so that we're experiencing, as it says here, the fullness of my humanity, not a static experience where I hold on with attachment and, some kind of fearful um, grasping. We don't, we let everything flow. And as it flows, it emerges greater and greater. Let's use the metaphor of climbing a mountain. The view keeps getting bigger and more broad, and the vistas become more magnificent. Why is that? Because we're climbing the mountain. And as we climb the mountain, our vision becomes clearer and clearer until finally we do reach the pinnacle. And the pinnacle, I would say, is a return back to the full acknowledgement and the awareness of being in heaven, heaven itself, in the bosom of the Father, Mother, God. God takes us that final step home to the pinnacle. And there, we're given a new blueprint and a new assignment. Our blueprint and our assignment might be to go back and help others as a teacher, either in a physical form or non-physically. This is a possibility. Or it may be that we simply, and not simply, that's not the word, but we remain in the bosom at the pinnacle of the mountain and we shine our light. And the light is shown as in a harbor with a lighthouse, and we guide others so that we're guiding them and expressing in their hearts and minds from our perfect hearts and minds. All of this is possible. Why? Because we've let go and we've let God. We've turned our will and our lives over to the care of God. And we know peace, and we know joy, and we know happiness. And that's our experience. And we then carry that message to others. And we practice these joyful blueprints and recognize others' blueprints. And we encourage them. We let them know that we're empathetic, that we're compassionate and kind, and we're grateful. You know, an attitude of gratitude is very contagious in a good way. We can let people know you deserve to be grateful. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to know that your blueprint was made specifically to empower you and to make you joyful, happy, joyous, and free. There's no embarrassment, there's no shame in living one's life fully. We don't have to worry about others feeling jealous or envious. We can be an example. We can inspire them. Don't worry that initially they may have negative feelings. That may be natural in some instances, but there's one greater than ourselves, our higher power, that is making the way smooth, making the road straight, removing all stones upon which they and we might trip and fall. And so we know the truth, and we recognize and we're grateful that it has set us free. Well, I'm so glad that we had this chance to discuss gratitude and also the blueprints that we were talking about. If you have any questions, there'll be a graphic at the end of this video with a phone number and an email address. Feel free to contact me. I would love to do coaching. I would love to do interacting and counseling. Anything that you would like to question or discuss further and more in depth, this is all within our bailiwick. Why? Because we've signed up to go from the hurt to the healing to the helping. And if I'm going through the hurt and the healing and I'm at the helping stage, then I want to help as many people as I can. That's the nature and that's the sum and substance of the ultimate blueprint, helping. It's an outreach. It's an opportunity to show people exactly what they're capable of. Jesus said, "You can do what I've done and more." Again, let us be aware of everything that is perfect in our lives. And it is perfect because there is one who created it as perfect. Let us align with that perfection, knowing that we didn't create it, but we are created in the likeness and the image of perfection, and that we can live all of those benefits, and we can express all of those benefits to others. And the more we express them to others, the more we know that we possess them and are part of it, and that we enjoy it to the fulfilling maximal expression that we can. This is the cycle. This is the true circle in which we're all part, and there's no one and nothing left out. Everybody and everything is part of the unfoldment of the grace and the blessings and the love that is meant to be extended. We put aside any negative thoughts. I'm just going to recap a little bit here. Gratitude helps us to pivot away, if you will, from the victim story, from the poverty story, from the scarcity story, from the envy story. We've woven that story long enough. What we're into now is allowing the blueprint to express through us. And of course, knowing that, we're happy, joyous, and free. So again, let me know if you're interested. You can email me, you can text me. I'd love to communicate with you. It's my joy and my privilege, both as a minister of New Thought and also as a spiritual being functioning in a human experience. That's what I'm designed and you're designed to be. The fullest expression of our being of help. We want to know each other. We want to know the greatness and the worthiness of each other. And I am fulfilled with so many people who are connected with me in a system of support. And that system of support keeps rippling out, growing, growing. I can see it happening, not of my own efforts, but of the efforts of the divine blueprint that is coming through and expressing as me, as you. Well, we're at the end of this episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for viewing. I want to thank you in advance for contacting me if you choose to do that. Thank you to the NECAT Network. Thank you to Candace Adelson, my editor and my soulmate. And until I see you next time, let me say from the bottom of my heart, shalom, peace, namaste. God bless.